Imagine a world without roads, without cities, without the comforting hum of electricity. A world where the air is not filled with the sounds of industry, but with the deep, primal silence of an untouched earth. A silence so profound, it feels like a presence itself. This is not a distant planet. This is your home, 300,000 years ago. The ground beneath your feet is the same, but the rules of existence are entirely different.
Keep the fire
You are
burning
not
bright.
at the top of the food chain. You are a part of it, a thread in a tapestry of tooth and claw. The chill in the air isn't from an air conditioner. It's the breath of a mile-thick glacier, slowly advancing from the north. The shadows between the ancient, towering trees aren't just empty space. They are hiding places. And every single day, from the moment the weak sun struggles over the horizon to the moment you huddle in the absolute blackness of night, your only task, your only purpose is to not die. This was life for our ancestors. This was the relentless, brutal, and awe-inspiring reality of prehistoric times. The world they inhabited was one of immense and terrifying scale. The continents were familiar in shape, but their character was alien. During the glacial periods, much of the north was locked under vast sheets of ice, white deserts that scraped the bedrock clean and sculpted the land. To the south, these ice sheets gave way to mammoth steppes, endless expanses of cold, dry grassland, teeming with life, but life of a kind we can scarcely imagine today. This was the domain of the megafauna, creatures of legend that were utterly real. Herds of woolly mammoths, their tusks curving like ancient tree trunks, would shake the very ground as they migrated. Giant elk with antlers spanning 3 meters, cave lions larger than any African lion, and packs of dire wolves with bone-crushing jaws. This was the cast of characters in the daily drama of survival. The air was colder, drier, and thinner. For a small band of humans, perhaps 20 or 30 strong, this world was both their provider and their perpetual executioner. They knew its rhythms intimately, the path of the sun, the turn of the seasons, the migration patterns of the herds, because this knowledge was the only thing standing between them and oblivion. Could you read the language of the wind? Could you smell water on the breeze from 5 miles away? Could you look at a track in the mud and know not just what animal made it, but how old it was, how fast it was moving, and whether it was hungry or fearful? For them, this wasn't a skill, it was their first language. Dawn did not bring comfort, it brought acute, gnawing anxiety. The first light filtering through the hide covering of a temporary shelter would illuminate faces drawn with exhaustion and hunger. The embers from the previous night's fire were the most precious thing they owned, carefully nursed and fed, because creating fire from scratch was an unreliable, time-consuming miracle. A child's cough, a rasping sound in the cold morning air, would send a jolt of pure fear through the entire group. There were no medicines, no doctors. An infection from a simple cut, a broken bone from a fall, a tooth abscess, any of these could be a death sentence, or worse, a slow, debilitating decline that would burden the group. The decision to move camp was a monumental one. It was based on a complex calculus of memory and observation. Had the herds moved on? Had they overhunted the local game? Were the signs of a rival band or a predator, like a cave hyena, becoming too frequent? Every step into the unknown was a gamble. They traveled light, carrying only what they could, sharpened stone tools, animal hides for warmth, perhaps a precious pouch of dried meat or fruit for the hardest times. Their entire existence was a lesson in impermanence. What would you choose to carry? What single object would you deem necessary for your survival, knowing it might be the only thing you own in the world? The hunt was the ultimate test of courage, intelligence, and teamwork. It was not a sport, it was a high-stakes negotiation with death. Imagine tracking a giant bison, a creature weighing a ton, its muscles like coiled rope, its horns sharpened to points. The hunters would have to communicate with barely a whisper, a series of hand signals developed over generations. They would use the landscape itself as a weapon, sometimes driving a herd towards a cliff edge in a terrifying stampede, a technique that required flawless coordination and an intimate knowledge of the terrain. The risk was immense. A misplaced step, a sudden change in the wind, giving away their scent, a moment of hesitation, and the prey could become the predator. A single kick from a horse could shatter ribs. A gore from an aurochs could spill a man's intestines onto the frozen grass. The success of a hunt meant feasting, the visceral joy of full bellies, the rendering of fat for fuel, the scraping and tanning of hides for clothing and shelter. It meant life for another week. Failure meant hunger, weakness, and the slow, desperate gnawing of starvation. The line between the hunter and the hunted was terrifyingly thin. In that moment of the charge, with the thunder of hooves vibrating through your feet and the adrenaline screaming in your veins, could you hold your nerve? Could you stand your ground when every primal instinct in your body was telling you to run? But to think of their lives as merely a brutal struggle is to miss half the story. Their world was also one of profound connection and stunning creativity. They were not just surviving, they were building a culture, piece by fragile piece. Around the fire at night, in the circle of light that held the darkness at bay, was where humanity truly flourished. This was the first classroom, the first theater, the first council chamber. Here, stories were told. Not just simple tales, but epic narratives of the hunt, of the spirits of the animals, of the stars that wheeled overhead. They would have sung songs, their voices rising in unison, melodies lost to time that spoke of grief, of joy, of warning. This is where they taught their children how to nap a piece of flint into a razor-sharp spear point, a process that seems like magic to us, but was basic science to them. They practiced the first medicine, using knowledge of plants, which root could ease a pain, which leaf could help heal a wound, knowledge earned through trial and tragic error and passed down through generations. They cared for each other. There is archaeological evidence of individuals who lived for years with severe disabilities, proof that they were supported and loved by their group. Their empathy extended beyond their own kind. The burial of a shaman with carefully arranged cave bear bones, or the tender placement of a loved one in a grave with offerings of ochre and flowers, speaks to a spiritual world rich with meaning and a belief in something beyond the brutal physicality of daily life. And then there are the caves. To walk deep into a place like Lascaux or Chauvet, away from the entrance and the world of light, is to step directly into their minds. By the flickering light of a simple stone lamp burning animal fat, they performed miracles. Their artists, with pigments of ochre, manganese and charcoal, breathe life onto the rock walls. The animals they painted are not static pictures, they are alive. They gallop, they charge, they swirl in great herds. They use the natural contours of the cave wall to give their paintings dimension, a bulge of rock becoming the muscled shoulder of a bison. This was not mere decoration. This was something deeper, a form of magic, a way of understanding and perhaps controlling the world. To paint the animal was to capture its spirit, to ensure a successful hunt, to pay respect to the creature that gave its life so they might live. In the absolute silence and darkness, broken only by the crackle of a tiny flame and the sound of their own breathing, they connected with the numinous. What were they trying to say to us? What prayers were they whispering as their hands traced the outlines of these mighty beasts? Their art is a message in a bottle, washed up on the shores of time, and it tells us one thing unequivocally. They were us. They felt awe. They felt fear. They felt the desperate need to create, to make meaning out of a chaotic and beautiful world. The challenges they faced were biblical in scale. The climate was not stable. It was a roller coaster of ice ages and brief, warm interglacials. A change in temperature could mean the difference between a landscape teeming with game and a barren, frozen waste. They encountered other species of humans, The Neanderthals, robust and supremely adapted to the cold. The Denisovans, whose genetic legacy we still carry. These encounters must have been moments of incredible tension, curiosity, and sometimes violence. But there was also connection, interbreeding, the exchange of knowledge and genes that shaped who we are today. Eventually, for reasons we are still piecing together, our Homo sapiens ancestors prevailed, where others faded into history. Was it our superior technology? Our complex social structures? Our ability to create abstract ideas and communicate them in ways that bound large groups together? It was likely a combination of all these things, a fragile recipe for survival that, against astronomical odds, worked. So, what is the legacy of this immense shared past? It is written into our very biology. Our stress response, that fight-or-flight reflex that kicks in during a traffic jam or before a big presentation, is a relic from a time when it was needed to escape a saber-toothed cat. Our craving for fatty and sugary foods is an ancient survival mechanism urging us to stock up on calories for the next famine. Our deep-seated need for social belonging, our fear of ostracism, comes from a time being cast out from the group was a death sentence. We are, in every fiber of our being, Pleistocene creatures who have stumbled into a world of instant gratification and digital connection. We are the children of those who endured, who cooperated, who innovated, and who dared to create beauty in the face of overwhelming darkness. They passed on to us not just their genes, but their resilience, their curiosity, and their boundless capacity to hope. The next time you feel the warmth of a fire, or share a meal with your family, or look up at the stars with a sense of wonder, know that you are participating in rituals that are older than history itself. You are living the legacy of the greatest survival story ever told. The world they built with their hands, their hearts, and their incredible will is the world we inherited. It is a story not of crude simplicity, but of profound sophistication and unbreakable spirit. It is the story of us.